So I lost my job today. The place got sold, and it looks like they will have new folks coming in. My thoughts and feelings on that aside, I want to share some experiences with you. It's the sprawling 5 buildings that were built on top of each other and stitched together from the mid-1800s through to the late 50s. It features a church, a tower on top of the original home for the sick and the poor, a nunnery, a maze of tunnels and basements, and 2 hospital wings. Imagine a cross between Session 9, Denver Asylum, and the Winchester Mansion, planning on a smaller scale, and that's where I spent the last few years. I didn't really believe in any hauntings before this. I used to go ghost hunting when I was in my 20s, but it was all the usual spooking yourself and your friends stuff, and it made me pretty skeptical. This place turned that around entirely. I'd not gone there looking for ghosts, so what I've experienced, I've tried to rationally explain myself, and I have often come up short. I have been on this website for a long time, and I want to get back where I can. I last posted here around Halloween last year, so some folks might remember parts of the story, but I've never told the whole entire picture. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm not supposed to confirm where it is for safety reasons. It's an asbestos-filled death trap. Some of the pictures I will share were taken in areas that simply do not exist anymore due to decay over the years. It's not too hard to work out where it is, but I don't want to give myself away either. So, if you're interested, here is what happened of note: historical, anecdotal, and paranormal. So when this first one happened to me, I had become friends with the caretaker. Fast forward, I become the assistant caretaker for a haunted, derelict Victorian institute. This new caretaker, we will call John. He is in the courtyard one day as I walk by. We get to talking. He is big on the history of the places he works. He always does tons of research. I ask if I can come back with a camera just for the courtyard. He is cool with it. It eventually becomes mutually beneficial. They need the place documenting, and I want to document. I get to see more and more of the place, and I am left to my own devices. Low-light photography can get pretty boring to watch. There is a big-ass old-school boiler in the first basement, and a ton of asbestos. Seriously though, I was not licking the walls or anything, but it's a nasty business. I did not want to touch much of anything to disturb it down there and end up with fucking lung cancer. Someone actually broke in just a few months back and tried smashing the boiler up. I'm glad I'm not them. Doing long exposures, the only light is coming from a trap door above a curved brick staircase that comes out on a private street inside the complex. I keep hearing this banging noise from all up in the building. This would have been built in the early 1930s. Eventually, I go up to find John. I'm thinking he's stripping out old furniture still. Nope. He's sunning himself in the yard. I ask what's up. He's not been doing anything. He tells me about how when he's doing night checks, the doors would slam themselves shut behind him as he came down the central stairs. He figures that the ghosts are restless at my recent intrusions to their building. I figure it's a massive building with a lot of airflow. Those doors are heavy and mostly swollen shut from water and decay though, so it was a little bit weird. I get to asking John about if he thinks there is ghosts here. When starting up watching the place, the nights became busy, he said. He would be sat in a security box trying to chill, and the place would suddenly feel noisy. He would go outside into the courtyard and constantly feel like being bumped into or brushed up against. He eventually got sick of it after a few nights and just plainly walked in and told them he is here to take care of the building. They left him alone after that. I make sure to say hi whenever I visit, just in case. The place is pretty relaxing to be in, except for a couple of places where you feel like you should not linger. The place is like its own little world. When you cross the threshold, all the sound of the town around pretty much completely disappears. I have spotted friends looking to visit and shouted to them from the windows or the front gate, just for them to not hear me, and I have to go outside to meet them. The temperature drops pretty sharply past the gates, though it's very self-contained, so probably just does not catch the sun very well. There are real calm vibes by and large. It's got a small ecosystem going on, usual little birds, plus a few hundred pigeons there for generations. There are 2 cats, at least 1 bird of prey, an owl, and several bats. Rats seem to have moved on after the first year. There's not really any bugs. I always figured the birds kept them under control too well. But one night, I was mooching about the Victorian entrance hall, and suddenly 8 p.m. rolls by, and the place just came alive with things crawling the walls and floors everywhere. Spiders, beetles, black wormy things with legs. Just that one night, out of the blue. Just quirks of the place, really. John tells me about how one time, him and another maintenance guy are chilling after opening the core, the original front door to the 1800s Institute, and they did this for the first time in years. Out wanders two people, arm in arm, middle to later aged, totally nonplussed to the shocked and angry site workers. They are wearing clothes that are a bit outdated. The woman is in a big dress, maybe 80s to 90s clothing, he said. You aren't meant to be here. And they both just say, we know. They walk straight out the open gates, up the road, never to be seen again. He tells me he figures someone was just waiting to be shown the way out, or collected. The final part of this place's life was a nursing home. No police, no phones. Signal inside is patchy at best. On most of our phones, all signal and Wi-Fi drops to zero the second you cross the gates, and immediately comes back if you just stick your arm outside. I had to call the police one night due to credible threat to safety from outside, and that is what I'm told to do. I was on an annex with a collapsed roof. It used to be a glass ceiling, like a greenhouse but a corridor. I made the mistake of walking inside the building whilst on the call. The signal immediately cuts out. It does this pretty much anywhere that you walk inside, no matter what era the build. No services are allowed entrance to this place anyway. We were told, politely but firmly, no emergency services insurance will cover it when the current owner took over. They will turn up if we catch people, in the sense it's harder to get out than it is to get in, and we have to go in and escort them back out. Some refuse to come outside because they are messing around live streaming and want to see my hero, so official backup is needed. They just will not go past the courtyard. If there's an accident, tough. It took me a while to learn to navigate the place. Hospitals and things are a maze of corridors at the best of times, but this one has got walls and floors missing on top of being built over nearly 2 centuries. The blueprints do not mean much here anymore. The asbestos inspectors are watching in horror as we cross out entire areas and draw new ones into their maps. We recently found a staircase behind a wall in the 1800s basements that does not go up nor down to anything. We just noticed that the brickwork was not right. It was this modern cinder block crap, and whoever did it in a hurry because they left everything. I'm talking bricks, big bags of plaster, to solidify in front of the new wall. I have no idea. Someone smashed through a bathroom in the 30s build, and you can see a Victorian external window, a meter opposite, behind where the toilet tank used to be, sealed up in a vertical passage straight down. I can't work out which room the window should be in. It might be collapsed though. I found some other areas that we wanted to break into just a few days ago. Won't be able to now, sadly. That's all probably got reasonable explanations though. It isn't actually moving around or anything, collapsing but not relocating walls. Like I say, when electricity was introduced, they could just cover a lot of things and not care. Kinda shitty though. Time does really mess with you in that place though. John kinda summed it up like this. You ever notice you leave something here and it becomes old? Like, you put a pen down now, come back in a day or so, and it's like it's been here for 50 years. It's really hard to explain, but he is entirely right. It's like if time was moss, the building envelops anything that stands around for too long, and it catches up pretty quickly to the rest of the place. I left my bag behind when I went home. It had my lunch in it, which I hadn't touched that day because I was so busy, and honestly, feeling a little bit sick and not too hungry. I had fresh fruit. It was sandwiches with freshly cooked meat. Everything was fresh that day. Nothing had been left behind for a while. I come back. I open up my bag. Boom. I'm hit with the smell of rot. The apple, it's like almost a black color. The meat has gone off and it smells horrible. I nearly threw up just smelling that shit. I just threw away the entire bag. It wasn't even worth it anymore. I would pop in to do security checks or take some photos, and a half-hour job sees you leaving 4 hours later without even realizing. Like, I'm not kidding you, time would pass so much quicker than you actually expected. I was a smoker when I started here, and you would not even think to touch the pack whilst inside. It felt like seconds had passed by, not minutes. I actually had a friend visiting one time. I leave her in a little chapel area just to go and ask John something. There is 3 corridors between her and John. I check what time he wants to call it a day. I come back to my friend. They scold me for leaving her on her own inside for 20 minutes. I had to show her my watch and take her out to John to confirm that we had not even been 5 minutes. Time just moves really weirdly there. So, yeah, I was still doing photography stuff a couple of years back. I take my girlfriend and friend for company. I was in a deep basement. The kitchen was built into the 1800s part. It was radically refitted around the 1970s. This basement no longer gets any natural light whatsoever. Once upon a time, they built this place with fantastic ways of letting light get around. Glass floors, specially placed windows, passages for sun to travel down. The original entrance is a large open corridor above it, a glass ceiling and glass floor to allow light into the entrance corridors and basement. The basement then had large doors to help spread illumination into small rooms. What was not built through by the 1970s after electrics had been installed has mostly been smashed now. This basement is accessed through a corridor in the center of the 1800s complex and 2 long underground tunnels leading off under the far side. Behind this building, up top, is just the gardens, which are walled off, and a massive embankment/hill that eventually trails off elsewhere. I do not like this area. This is one of the places you always feel off in. John later said the same to me. It's this long, pitch-black tunnel straight beneath the original 1800s build for the asylum that started it all. There is a dozen or so tiny rooms, converted for a nursing home. They span off in the way cracked glass does in a few directions. Once I left a torch down there and nipped back to get it. I knew my way around easily. I did not need another one with me. I got face to face with that darkness and I just locked up. I had to go back up and get another torch. This place fully has that see your breath always cold. Whenever you breathe out like a fog. Blood turns to ice, that cold sweat vibe going on. The kitchen is on the right. You'd be under the courtyard now. My girlfriend and female friend are messing around in the kitchen with a torch. I find the giant walk-in freezer collapsed in on itself in a small room behind kitchens. Neat. I set up my tripod for long exposure. There are small lights at the time. I hear a little giggle coming out from the halls. I figure it's just my GF and her friend. I don't care. Spooky freezer is happening. My friend and GF had wandered in to watch what I'm up to by now. It turns out they had just been more or less stood around, just waiting. I am just finishing up when I hear the giggle of a little girl from the kitchen/hall direction again. I bolt upright. My GF and friend are staring back at me, just as alarmed. They tell me, we heard that too. It turns out that most men down there get a really uneasy feeling, but most women feel nothing about the place. There is genuinely no way for outside sound to have traveled in, even if you're up in the courtyard. The popular theory is that some guy did something bad behind the scenes in a Victorian Catholic home for the poor kids. Go figure. I'm starting to get to the more unusual stuff now, so I will carry on. So I'm starting to move into a different role, being there to help secure the place. I have been getting pretty attached to it, and it's more or less on my doorstep anyway. I don't let on till I know John better that I had started having dreams about the place. I kept having one about needing to be there, and the front door behind the gates being open like a void, asking me to come inside. When I did, he just kind of nodded like, maybe I'm not the only one. You get a bit possessive of the place after putting in so much work. I turn up one morning to help fix the place up a bit. John is already there, looking annoyed. We've got someone inside. 10 a.m. is a bit early for the usual tourists breaking in. I get a description. This window over Church Hall. Teens or early 20s. Black hair and a ponytail. They are plain and pale looking. They did not say anything when we asked them to come outside. Back then, before things went to shit, John makes it clear he just wants you out safely, and if you do, there is nothing further said. No police called, nothing. She just goes back into the room apparently. We scour the place for a while, in the room that she looked out of. The floor is covered in broken glass, bottles, thatch, and plaster from the ceiling. Crunch, crunch, crunch. John says he did not hear which way she went, like no noise at all. That's pretty odd. We actually never find her. We seal everything back up, lock up. It's still sealed the next day. Fast forward to a month or so later. I'm chatting with some old ladies on the top of the road leading to the gates. Oh, we see you guys. It's so nice something is getting done with the place. It's just you two guys and the girl working here, right? What? Oh, we see her some nights looking out of that window. It was the same damn window. They gave the same damn description of her. About a year later, I am locking up for the end of my shift. It's winter nights. I find myself surrounded by a group of angry teens I had kicked out recently. Good times. I do not back up. I talk them down a little bit. The leader starts getting riled up again because I won't let them in. He tells me that there is a woman that lives in there. Black hair, ponytail, young, etc. He calls me a liar for denying it. He tells me he saw her in there just tonight. I just spent 12 hours in that building, and I know full well I was the only one living inside. Believe me, I am gonna miss working this place. I was all set up to take over full time, and suddenly all meetings were off and the keys just handed over. I could genuinely just waste away hours in the place with a camera or just wandering around peacefully. I got a real good rapport with the community too. I took the time to talk to urbexers that were not idiots, and I tried not to treat the under 18s like morons because they respond better. Local police offered me references. Neighbors and nearby businesses all had me on call if needed. I might wander over and see if I can introduce myself, just to pass on info about known security weak spots. Hey, OP, do you have any idea what this young woman was wearing? Modern clothes? Old clothes? Hospital garb? Sadly not. I will see if I can find a photo of the window she is known for looking out of. It's hard to see much below the shoulders from most angles. The angry teens insisted it was a woman in white. Completely unironically. No, this is a classic ghost story. As I mentioned, the leader was getting pretty angry with me for denying it. John calls her the nun, but he uses that as a bit of a catch-all given the place's history. I hope she is still around though. The door slamming thing stopped around a year ago. I've heard it said that if a place changes too much, the whatever it is may dissipate or move on. And sadly, the buildings are deteriorating rapidly due to damage and weather. I found a photo off of my film camera, so it's pretty low quality, sorry. I have plenty of shots to sift through, but the last 2 months, there has been more or less 8 a.m. to midnight shifts, so I have been much too tired to catch up sorting them out properly. So, this window is in a small room behind the gallery in the chapel on the left. It would have connected to the bell tower, but the floor is out on the right. There is no access up. The bell took all the ladders out years before we came on board. It's possible to avoid falling through the floor, we think, and go right, but you would just end up in the Victorian core, and that was really easy to search back then. Going left just put you in front of us coming in. There is roof access from that small room, but if you did make it across safely, then we would definitely hear it. Here is an odd one. So I turn up one day and the ground floor ward is full of junk. I noticed that in the corner, some soil has appeared. There are no plant pots or anything, just this wiggly line of soil. Like if you filled a giant icing bag with soil and drew some really crappy M shapes. Okie dokie. Later on, I am checking out the second floor of the hospital. This was mostly private rooms, wardrobes, space for a bed, some ensuite bathrooms, purpose-built in the 1930s. And there is more soil. Some goes on longer than others, but it's all in the same exact pattern, just in random rooms. In one room, towards the end of the corridor, the door was swollen shut, so I had to shoulder it open. It could have been done by a person, but why? It's still there in some of the rooms to this day. People have gone up to some weird stuff here. On the topmost floor of the hospital build, there is stacks of old gurneys and an x-ray machine that's rusting. I brought the beds and some old filing cabinets up on the elevator. It's this proper old school gated thing. It's rusted solid, but still rocking at the top of the shaft. Someone has ripped the copper piping out and thrown asbestos cladding all around. Neat. At some point, someone strung clothesline wire up between the girders, and I mean they really went to town, making it a nightmare to get down some years later. I found the last original light switch cover that had not been stolen just before I left. I wanted that as a souvenir, damn. For all the weird stuff and stuff smashed through, they all left anything with Christ. Stained glass windows with saints are just twisted lead now, but the large window right next to the entrance praising Jesus is still there. Every window gone, equipment smashed, the portaloo and security box are utterly wrecked. Someone took tools to shatter the glass walls of the hospital, and even to try cutting down the iron railings and some of the old equipment doors, but no one touches the floor-to-ceiling crucifix. Here is the crucifix in a chapel of rest, we think. The morgue table was put there by the owner for safety. It did not stop an urbexer smashing it. I was offered, if I could find a way to transport the pieces, to take it and see about getting it restored. I was pretty annoyed that cannot happen now. The owner, whom just sold on, was really into preserving things like this and had just refused offers to buy it by collectors. It's a real shame it went this way. Here's probably the weirdest one. I was up on the third floor of the hospital. This would have connected to the latter 1800s build and possibly the nunnery. The ceiling has collapsed in the ward and hall that would have joined the two buildings. I was looking about with my camera and some friends that we will call Darren and Brian. Darren and I are chatting whilst waiting on Bob. I take a few snaps. Brian comes up to join us. He goes all wide-eyed. He goes, "Oh shit, who's hurt?" I have a blank expression because I have no clue what he is talking about. He just goes, "The blood?" Sure enough, there are splashes of blood at our feet. There's lots of broken glass up here, so we are immediately patting ourselves down before realizing that there is enough that you would know about it immediately. The blood is fresh, Brian declares, poking it with a stick and smearing it around. The blood is red and not congealed. That's my complete know-how exhausted of how blood works. We had not noticed it coming up. It's drying pretty quickly in front of us. I look around and realize that it starts at the entrance to the collapsed room, right in the middle of the open doorway. There is nothing to cut yourself on here, not really, and not really anywhere to have come from. I follow the blood. It's like if you cut your hand pretty badly and are trying to hold it. It doesn't look like much, but there is a good blob every inch or so, and that's a fair amount when you think about it. It goes all the way down the corridor. It turns right, wavering into a wall a bit here and there. It turns left, following the hall, a closed door. I figure this is going to be where we find some homeless dude or scared urbexer who hurt themselves. We announce our entrance. We fail to enter. The door is just not budging. I gotta get Brian to help me push the thing. We finally open up the door. The door, it had swollen up in the frame a little bit, but behind it, the glass from the walls, it's this thick pigmented stuff that lined the corridors for easy cleaning, but was essentially just glued on, had fallen down entirely. We'd heard and felt the door push it out of the way to let us in. There was nothing in there. It was just a room filled with broken glass and an old sink. There was a sheer drop several floors down, outside either of the two windows. The blood stops in the doorway again. Fast forwards to today. Some of the old light fixtures had rusted out and fallen down, turning to dust in the corridors, but you can still see the reddish-brown stains of blood along the floor in a fair few places. I had blood in a few other places over the next 2 years. I'm putting at least one of those down to a pigeon cutting itself on broken glass as it was splashed in drops around the windowsill. Another time, we are chatting with John in the lower main hall when he goes wide-eyed. He says he saw, basically, a shadow person go past in the hall behind us. No one found in the building, but there was a streak of blood on the door that they would have come from. That could have been there any time over the weekend before. It is smeared, but still there now, and it ain't like we've been looking before. Here is a couple of shots of the blood splashes. You can see it got worse at one point. On the left is how it was when Brian spotted it, all around our feet. On the right is when it started hugging the wall, now and then, before getting to the sealed door. It could have started where we followed it to, but it still does not explain the sealed door, or where they went to at the other end. This last one happened around Halloween 2020. I was staying till midnight with a team. I figure it'll be a prime time for break-ins. It was really calm, just a few ghost hunters actually. Bad timing. We had a major break-in just the night before. John was not in the mood to let other people inside. We have a good night once we were cleaned up. It was quiet, but we had some laughs with friends. It gets to midnight, which is home time. We gotta go and collect the electric lanterns that I put up in the blood hallway to light in one of the internal streets. I thought it would look cool. I leave the team downstairs. It won't take me more than 2 minutes. I have this tiny torch to get me to the top of the hall. I nod at a person down the corridor on the right. I'm not really looking. I just say, "You okay?" I pause and ask myself who I think I just saw stood at the end of the collapsed corridor. I turn to see the shadow person disappear back into the collapsed room. I take 5 minutes to collect the lanterns on a 30-second stretch of hall. I get back to the courtyard to tell John. "John, man. Don't tell me. You know that collapsed corridor? Oh, you saw the nun. It was about the right shape to be a nun's habit, yeah." That was the first time I'd heard him refer to her as the nun, but it's who he thinks the window girl is too. He says he's seen her down a few corridors, but when she was at the window, it was clear as day. 3 years ago, the place was in way better condition. The surgery lights still had their blue glass, the stained glass windows were mostly intact, and so much more beside. I've told in around 2015, the church pews, grandfather clocks, more statues, etc. were all there too. I could talk a lot about that and the situation with the urbexers. In short, I made friends with a lot of urbexers there and got real impatient with folks using the name to just try to get PayPal donations on their live streams while smashing walls open, cause the next thing you get is a swarm of tourists. And with that, the ones that steal lead and copper, or folks who just smash stuff for the sake of it. I have not really been able to do anything urbex-like since starting there though. It would not look good getting caught on the CV. But that's about it. That's all the main stuff I can remember anyway. There's always been feelings, sounds, that vibe that you are being watched, or are unwanted at times, along with temperature drops, but that's what it's been like just working there.